Tommy D, what are you dancing around? What's with the funky music? This is a serious topic. Well, yes, it is a serious conversation, but it's about hashtag ending the stigma together so we can have some good tunes. We can mellow out together. We can rock out together a little bit, because I think the more we normalize this conversation, I believe that, not just think, I believe the more we normalize this conversation and dialogue we're having about serious mental illness, mental health in general, and really treatment and sources and opportunities and connections and relationships, well, it's all right to listen to some tunes, man, because I don't know about you, but I remember the Tasmanian Devil, that old cartoon. I didn't know I was going to say this, but the Tasmanian Devil, they would play music, and they would say, music soothes the savage beast, and the Taz would just chill out after you did that. So maybe that's how Tommy D, Tommy DeMisa, Tasmanian Devil, I don't know, figure it out. The show is hashtag ending the stigma. Sue Fitzgerald is here, my new friend from Zucker Hillside. Sue, what's going on? How are you?
I would like to thank you for having me here, first of all, Tommy. It's a pleasure
You're welcome.
And an honor. So a little bit about myself. My name is Sue Fitzgerald. I am a registered nurse. My entire career has been spent working in behavioral health, always at Hillside Hospital. Before it was Zucker Hillside Hospital, it was just plain Hillside Hospital. So over 35 years working in the field of psychiatry. It's my passion, obviously. You know, Zucker Hillside is a wonderful place that is constantly growing in the way we treat patients and families. And I've had the great experience of witnessing great changes in the way we deal with people who have mental illness. You know, when I was in my second to last semester in college, I said to my parents, well, I've done everything, and yeah, I think I'm going to be a pharmaceutical rep. And there was silence on the other end of the line.
Really?
I said, because the only rotation I have to do is psych, and there is no way that I would ever want to do that.
So okay, so if I go pharma, then I'll never have to do psych.
Right.
And then now 35 years later.
35 years later, there's nothing that I would rather do. And my experience in psychiatry in nursing school, completely different than anything I've ever dealt with here. But there's nothing I'd rather do.
Well, there's a story right there. So you're an RN and you're DPN, right?
Right. So I have my my master's in nursing and my doctorate in nursing practice. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I got my doctorate in executive nursing leadership.
Got it.
So that's more my focus. At Zucker, I'm a senior manager of patient care, which means that I have some leadership. I'm currently doing the manager role on one of our inpatient geriatric units, which is something I've never done in my career. So I'm enjoying that. And I'm also the culture leader at Zucker. And the culture leaders in Northwell are people who focus on supporting the patient experience, which can be kind of challenging in behavioral health, because so many of our patients don't want to be in the hospital. They don't want to be in treatment. They don't understand that there's anything wrong with them. And if you don't think there's anything wrong with you, then you certainly don't need treatment. So it's difficult to support a positive patient experience with those factors.
The experience is, I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here. Right, so why would I ever say likelihood to recommend this hospital? You've got me here against my will. You know, the door is locked and you won't let me out. So
that, when on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm not going to give you a 5.
No, fives are tough there, but we're doing okay. Actually, we're doing very well with our patient experience. My passion is working with families who have a family member who is experiencing mental illness. My doctoral research was with families who had a family member who was just diagnosed with their first episode psychosis. So these are families who have had mental illness thrown at them.
Right, so they don't understand. They have no context, no paradigm. All of a sudden, my loved one is experiencing, is in crisis, which means the family unit is now in crisis.
Absolutely. I mean, I often, when I'm doing education, I say, imagine you're at work and you get a call that your son's away at college and he broke his leg playing lacrosse, and you have to come get him because he's going to need surgery. You bring him home, maybe he sits out from lacrosse the rest of the semester, but in a year, he'll likely be fine, right? And everything will go back to normal.
And I can understand that experience too. Like, even if, I can see and envision if my son broke his leg, and I have 4 children and they play sports, so we get a lot of stuff that gets broken. That I can relate to.
Right.
what you're about to talk about
exactly.
is not something that if I don't have that paradigm, I haven't experienced it.
No.
Even if no one in my house has ever broken a leg or an arm, I can get that,
and
right?
you can talk about it.
Yeah, not this stuff.
Imagine you're at work and you get a call that your son who's away at college, you need to come get him. He's paranoid, he's saying he's hearing voices, he's not letting his roommate in the room, he's not eating and drinking. That is what I call a life-changing phone call, because once mental illness enters a family, things are never the same. And that's not to say that we don't have great treatments for mental illness right now. And that's not to say that your son might not go back to college next year. But mental illness is always a part of your family, and things are never the same. And
where that was a fork in the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Things are never the same. You have no idea of what to expect because nobody talks about mental illness. You can't tell anyone. I've had families who won't even tell, like there was this one family and the mom said, I won't even tell his cousins that he's been in the hospital because I don't want them to be afraid of him. And to hear a family speak of that heartbreak and say, what do we do? What's out there? And I always talk about...
And they can't ask anybody because if you're not going to tell somebody, you can't, outside of professionals like yourself or maybe other families through, you know, we talk about different associations, NAMI, otherwise. But if I can't tell my nieces and nephews that this is my experience, well, how can I ask my brother-in-law or my sister?
Exactly. You can't. I always say when somebody has open heart surgery, they come out with that big stuffed heart, right? And they're in the Brave Hearts Club. When you have mental health, there's none of that.
No.
One of the family members on our Patient and Family Advisory Council said, when you have a family member who's brought out by the cops, there's no casseroles being brought to your house. And in fact, you might not even be invited to the holiday cocktail parties anymore.
Well, that's even the next ripple effect, right? Like we're now... the experience of your own social situation has changed. I mean, you as being not the individual experiencing it, but the family member experiencing this. Now, what are we doing? I'm sorry. Like, this is how I get frustrated. Like this, Tommy D, this is like a professional show. Yeah, I get angered by these types of things because, like, I said when we were outside in the green room and things like that. Like, it's like I believe this affects everyone, and if it hasn't affected your family, if it hasn't affected you as an individual, this is affecting somebody in your extended family, right?
Absolutely. Whether you admit it or not,
100%.
Whether you tell anybody or not.
You can joke about this and say it doesn't exist.
Or not.
Right, sure. So that's a perfect thing. So there may be someone in your family that is experiencing this, that's just not getting treatment. So we haven't even addressed, we haven't even dealt with that and said that this is a reality for people, right? So it touches everyone.
It touches everyone. The stigma is still so incredibly strong, which I just don't, I have such a hard time understanding. And the stigma so impacts people getting support, as you mentioned. So you talked about NAMI. That's all we got out there is NAMI. When families, I do like a drop-in center for families during visiting hours, and the families come down and they don't know where to.
So again, this is just brand new. So let's kind of set that stage a little bit, because even not just the stigma, people don't even know. So let's do this. So let's say, go back to the son. He's away at college. We get the phone call. We get him in, and let's say he's going to Queens College or lives off campus, or he's at St. John's or whatever, local, where there's a chance he ends up in the system at Zucker. Right. What happens? What you mentioned the families and tell me about that.
The kids are, if they're very sick, they're admitted to the inpatient unit, and there's a treatment team of social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists. And that's all great for the patient. But what about this family who comes to visit and they see that their child still has symptoms, and what's going to happen when he comes home with us? Is there going to be treatment for him when he leaves? I mean, so many questions. And is there somewhere where we can go to get answers? And then I talk about NAMI. And I talk about all the programs that NAMI has. They have a family-to-family program, which is 8 weeks, which I personally have attended. It's incredible. But NAMI really is, in my experience, the only organization that is nationwide and known, and really, we have an active chapter at Zucker that really offers family support and education, because it's like a grassroots organization run by families who've been where these families are.
Yeah.
You know, their lived experience is so important for these families because they know exactly what you're going through. They know what it's like to have a family member who's not going to take their medication.
Yeah.
They've
been down this road. They're ahead of you. They're a couple miles ahead of you.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is so important. And, you know, support is out there. Education is out there. You need to educate people. I mean, even my own family, I very openly talk about mental illness in my family. And, you know, still people aren't comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, they're not comfortable. You know, they still think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and of these asylums, you know. You drive past Creedmoor and people just look and they're frightened.
Yeah.
Or Pilgrim State. They're
and I think you and I talked about that over the phone, and it's very unusual. And I don't know where even, look, I'm 47 years old. I grew up on this island, a Nassau County kid, and I drive down that side of the Coast Parkway sometimes, man, and I see Pilgrim State. It is eerie, and this is I don't know why. I don't know why it's. I've never been on the campus there. I don't know anything, but I just, and Creedmoor similar, not to the same extent, but that Pilgrim State is a very strange. Did I create that in my mind? Like why I don't know why I'm like physically state change when I pass by that building.
I also have never been on the grounds of Pilgrim.
You haven't? Yeah.
But I have the same experience. When you look at that, that looks like an asylum.
Yeah.
And it's scary. Even when you talk about treatments like medications and electroconvulsive therapy, don't bring that up with most people. They're like, oh no, and I'm like, really no. And I always say, if I had a family member who was very ill and really suffering with mental illness, I would recommend that treatment in a heartbeat.
It's interesting you bring that particular treatment up because just recently, so I tell this very openly on the show, I see my therapist twice a week, and I was in a conversation with him because, not for my purposes, but I was at a NAMI meeting at Zucker because my friend Jamie Rosen was there speaking a couple weeks ago, and I'm just there. Wanted to be in the room hearing something, plus support my friend, colleague Jamie. And one of the people had asked about this particular therapy, and I gotta tell you the truth, I was shocked. I said, oh my God, we still do that? Like I had no context of that. Like I thought that was like in the movies and stuff like that. My therapist who I work with was saying to me, specifically, and this is, you could probably answer this too, specifically in the geriatric community, I think even more so that it's relevant because I don't know if they don't respond to medication as well. Talk about that.
So, yeah, it is used a lot in the geriatric community because they have coexisting medical conditions, right? So a lot of the medication, particularly the older medications, not as much with the newer ones, but there's side effects, and they don't tolerate the side effects, or the medication interacts with their medical meds.
They're probably on other stuff.
Yeah, so it's quick. You have general anesthesia, very quick general anesthesia, and you're at it. It's like you go to our suite, looks like an ambulatory surgery suite. We do it inpatient. We have a very active inpatient service, and we do it outpatient. And what I compare it to is people have an intense treatment when they're in the hospital, and then they go home and they go back to work. And they may go, depending on what kind of treatment they need, they may go once every other week or once a month after work.
It's like getting treatment.
It's like going to the dentist.
Some people get an infusion. Some people that, and
exactly. And they go back to work the next day.
So then and again, in our minds, I'll speak for myself only, in my mind it seems scary and torture, but it's a treatment, right? And it's effective, or else it wouldn't be used.
And it's very smooth. It's not barbaric. It's it's very civilized.
That's not what I would expect though. In hearing
you think of somebody having like a
I think like an electric chair.
Exactly.
Like
it's absolutely
Sparky, like the old Sparky.
It's absolutely nothing.
It's not like that. No.
At all. But that's just one example of the lack of knowledge and understanding
that has its own stigma, though, right? That's its own thing. Who knew, right?
And the stigma is just. And I find when I talk about mental illness or people who struggle with mental health issues in my own family, I'm very comfortable talking about it. I find that the people who you talk to get uncomfortable. If you share something of yourself or somebody close to you, they clam up and they're uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable talking about it.
I wonder what that piece is. Is that because they feel for you, or they're scared of it?
I think they're scared, like, ooh, you're talking about it? That could be, you know.
That's not catchy, right? Like, I can't get that. Right?
That could be me. That could be my nephew or my sister.
Which is exactly why I talk about this, because I want them to say this could be me. So exactly.
Yeah, it's great. But I think that we need to educate the public. We need to. And we talk so much about mental health education now, right? Especially post-COVID, we see people having so many issues. We see people having the younger people having so many issues, and that is true. But we can't forget about those who are adults and struggling with mental illness, people who have serious mental illness, who need those supports out in the community that aren't out there, whose families maybe are done with them. You know, mental illness is tough.
It's tough.
And not every family can deal with in and out of the hospital, being homeless, living on the street, getting arrested.
And you throw in the addiction that often
it
becomes, not all the time, but these things run together.
Absolutely.
And then what that comes with, and if it is drugs and money and all these things that just get exacerbated. And if you've been dealing with that for 20 or 30, 40 years.
You just might be done.
Yeah, there's a point where enough's enough.
Yeah. Or maybe you're having your own mental health issues. And you need to take care of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we know that it tends to be a revolving door because of multiple issues that are inherent in the illness. Not following up with treatment, not understanding the illness, not understanding that you have an illness that needs ongoing treatment. And often we hope that after a few rounds of coming in the hospital that people get it. And they begin to, you know, to take their meds and to go to their programs. And I tell families that when their child is first admitted, I said, you know up front that sometimes it takes a couple of times before your loved one gets that understanding that, okay, this is a part of me now.
Well, I think that's, so we're talking about it from the family aspect, but as an individual, like going like, no, I'm fine. Like there's getting used to, like you're saying, just for, oh, this is real. Like, I can't tell you how many times I say to my therapist, like, this ADHD thing I have, this is a real thing, right? It's not just me. He's like, no, you have this thing. And I know I have it, right? But I still, like, go, once a month I say, I definitely have this, right? Because it's something to realize and understand. And they accept. That's a great word. Accept that this is a part, it's not the whole person, but it is part of their experience.
Right. And that's why, you know, we don't say, you're a schizophrenic. You're a person who has schizophrenia.
Right.
Like we would talk about a person who has heart disease or diabetes or something like that.
Words have meanings.
Absolutely.
And it's a way our brain experience and realizes these things.
And you know, when I still hear people say, "Oh, he's a schizophrenic," don't say that's not right. On a positive note, what I would like to say is that I'm happy that today I'm wearing my T-shirt.
I see a T-shirt.
My P.S. I love you T-shirt.
I'm going to have to get, by the way,
we'll get you one, Tom?
You get me one of these and I'll get you one of these. We'll do a trade.
We'll do a trade. So just to speak to P.S. I Love You, it actually has become very well known in this area. It started out actually in West Islip. So the start of P.S. I Love You is that two young girls who were in high school experienced losing their dad to suicide. And the last thing that the dad said to the young girl as he dropped her off at school and then went home and took his life was, "I love you." They decided they were going to turn this around and they were going to make it something positive. So they developed P.S. I Love You, and the whole theme of P.S. I Love You is that people are there for you. People are there to support you. Reach out, be kind to each other, support each other. And I will say that, I will openly say that we lost one of our heads of security who was at South Oaks and Zucker last year to suicide. And his wife has immediately wanted to be transparent about it and talk about his experience. And he didn't want to get treatment because he said people would treat him differently. He got treatment. The first time he was hospitalized, he got treatment, and you know what? He came back. He said people treated me differently. He couldn't, and he would say to his wife, "I just want to be me again. I don't want to have this illness anymore." and eventually he took his own life. You know, it hits home. It's everywhere. And one of his friends who works in security, and many of these guys are former policemen, he said he knows eight people he worked with who took their lives.
That were on the policemen or in the security?
I think a mix of, you know, within the police department.
Yeah, well, that holds with its own stigma.
Exactly.
Because then, you know, and again, I've never been on the job, but I've talked to a lot of people in that space, and, you know, they're going to take my gun, they're going to take my badge, I'm out of a career, and all that. And tragically, unfortunately, we see so many first responders, especially the police department, taking our lives. And it's terrible. And all I say to that, though, is like, they're part of the human race, and then they see all this. I have a friend. She honored me a couple of years ago. The name of the organization is Post-Tour Processing, and what I learned through that organization is, specifically police officers, they see more trauma in a single tour than the rest of us see in a lifetime. In a single tour. So there's so much wrapped up into that, and I don't. Most of the show, I say I don't know what I'm like, all the facts and figures and things, but specifically with that, I only know anecdotally of the people I've met, and it's just so sad.
Because it strips them. They take their gun. It strips them of who they are.
Right. And if that's you, you're a provider for your family, right? Whether man or woman, you're a provider, and then they take your career away. So there's a lot of organizations. In fact, I was on a call earlier this week of different organizations that do work specifically with that community. But how there's so much to process. And the name of that organization, Post-Tour Processing. There's just so much wrapped up into these conversations, you know. It makes me think now there's another person that needs to come and sit in this seat and have these conversations, you know.
Exactly. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it all the time. We need to talk about it more. You know, we have people who are, you know, well-known people who are coming out talking about their struggles with mental illness, which is great. But we need to talk about it right here in our communities.
100%.
We need to talk about it at our faith-based organizations. We need to talk to our neighbors, which I do. But I have to tell you, I really think part of the problem is when I'm comfortable talking about it, but people aren't comfortable hearing it and wanting to know about it. Because of the stigma, because of the whole stigma, it gets in the way of treatment, of support.
You mentioned celebrities and folks who come out. You know, the one that comes to mind most for me is Simone Biles, when she stepped down, when she was in the Olympics and stepped down and just decided, based on her own stuff, she had to stop competing in the Olympics. I think Michael Phelps has come out certainly again as another person in that space. And we look up to these people, right? It's celebrities or athletes. And I believe when those people can come out and talk about this, it makes it more, in my words, normalized for us to have these conversations, which is why I'm a little flagrant about it. And I just kind of put it out there that this is the stuff and this is what I do and this is how. And the more I believe, we're just beginning this campaign, this journey of #ending the stigma together, right? We might do 20 more episodes of this. We might do 20,000. I don't know. I don't know. And it's not about like me. I just want to be a catalyst to start this stuff. To start the conversation. And if factions break away and people talk about it and it's because I made up a t-shirt, cool. Like, you know, like let's do it. Like whatever that is, whatever that push could be.
We talk about people coming, like the Olympians who came out and talked about it, and that's wonderful. We need to come out and talk about it.
When you say we,
you and I, our neighbors, right? People who have had can comfortably talk about, yes, I deal with anxiety, I deal with depression, I deal with bipolar disorder, but look at me. I'm okay.
That's the stuff.
Right?
That's what it is.
I'm okay. I have a job. I have a family. I'm successful. I have a career. I enjoy my life.
And I have this challenge, this issue, this illness.
And I have bipolar disorder. But I take medication for it. And look at me.
And look at the stuff I'm doing. And that's when, if that's representation, right? Like if I see you say that, or people see me or somebody else or whoever say these things that they go, oh, it's okay. Like
look at him.
It's okay not to be okay.
Well,
Love that. Love that one.
Perfect.
I love that.
Perfect.
Yeah. I didn't come up with that one, but
no,
I
but
certainly.
who's okay?
Yeah.
Right? Who's okay on a given day?
Again,
who is okay?
No, nobody. Most people I know are not. And if they, my contention is you're faking it, gang. If you're saying you're okay all the time. But,
Exactly. We need to talk about it. Like I have a family member who deals with obsessive compulsive disorder, and he also has processing disorders. Well, he'll talk to anybody about his processing disorder because that's like.
But he won't mention the OCD.
He won't talk about that with anybody.
Interesting.
That I know of.
Yeah, right.
I heard him talking to his cousins.
Yeah.
He was talking about his processing disorder, and I kind of kept my ear out.
Yeah, just want to see if he drop in.
Yeah.
I love that. So you know what's interesting? So just this week, I have 4 children, and my older son of the 2 boys was saying that at the middle school, they had an assembly for, he told me the name of the organization is escaping me. I think it was yesterday he just told me, because I do a lot of work in the nonprofit space, and one of his teachers has somebody he had gone to high school with, had taken his own life, and they had the middle school teacher and this nonprofit organization came in and they did an assembly for these young people to talk about what we're talking about. And this is it. There's where my other son goes to school, the principal is quasi-famous. Like he just was on one of those reality TV shows and he won the reality TV show. So I gave him one of these t-shirts, by the way. And I haven't activated him on what I need him to do yet, right? But he's got a following on social media and whatnot. So when I gave him the shirt and I told him about this thing, I said, I know you were on the TV and stuff like that. And he goes, do you do assemblies? And I go, sure. Now I haven't done an assembly just yet, but I would bring in, and I would kind of bring in these different people, because that's how we end it. That's how I see education. How do you see, like if I say to you, Sue, how do we end the stigma?
I think what you're saying now, we start early.
Yeah.
We start talking to kids early, right? We start saying it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
We start talking about our own experiences, our own families. We make it okay to talk about it, but we just need so many more people to do that.
Yeah.
And I think we start it, right? We bring it out. You know, I know that one of our nurses at Zucker, she's been a nurse there for a long time, in her synagogue, the rabbi approached her and said, you work in mental health, can you start something?
Speak to the congregation?
Speak to the congregation. She started a resource group, support groups, and it grew within the synagogues in the whole community. Oh my God. So I would like to start something like that in my church, because people need it. Anytime you need me to come there with coffee mugs and T-shirts and say #End the Stigma, I'm happy to do it. I graduated from Chaminade High School, so you know. Sacred Heart graduate. Oh, all right. So we got that. Bond. We got that connection. See, so happy to talk about this because that's what it is. Nobody's immune to this situation, Sue. Absolutely. Nobody. Not. Absolutely. Thank you for everything you're doing. I would love to keep this dialogue going, love to keep you back in the loop as we continue to have this. It would be my pleasure and my honor to come back and to continue this conversation. That's the coolest. Thank you. It has to happen. Thank you. You're changing the world. This is like you and the team around you and all the people in your organization are serving people who need the service and change the world. I appreciate you. And these patients and families need it more than, need it more than, and I don't want to say that they need it more than people who have medical, serious medical issues, but they do. Yeah. Because it's not out there. Because you know what, serious medical issues, we already have the contacts, we can give it, we understand it, right? This is different, so it's more necessary. I appreciate your friendship. That's how quick a show goes. It's just like that. That's great. That's it. Thank you. My new friend Sue, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thank you all for being here. This is #Ending the Stigma Together. We're gonna keep conversing. We're gonna keep the dialogue going. Look, if you want to connect with me, we're going to share all that information in a second here. You reach out. If you want to get on the show, you know somebody that should be on the show, let's connect. I'm Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, and this has been another In Focus production. Thank you, everybody. Bye now.